Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Fringe North podcast. My name is Caitlin Townsend. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the project coordinator for this year's Fringe Festival. And I have with me here today Len. Len, would you like to take a quick minute to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your festival submission for this year's festival?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Thanks for being here.
Um, yeah, I'm in Mount Bridges, the big metropolis of Mount Bridges, Ontario, which is near London for anybody who's not highly geographically, uh, knowing where that is. But yeah, I have a theater company as a part-time gig kind of thing that I started several years ago, and we work with youth and children in camps and stuff like that. And also I do productions. But this year I'm doing, we have a show that I've put together of 4 short plays, and it's called Faded Shorts. I think that's what it's called. That's what it's called. Yep. And it's basically 4 plays about the mystery of life and beyond. And it's actually four short plays out of 7 that I've actually got. I had intended to be in the London Fringe Festival last year with all 7, but of course that got canceled. And so four have been put together to create one show and stay within about 46 minutes. So that's what we've got for this year.
That's awesome. We're really
Yeah,
looking forward to having you as part of the festival.
awesome. Yeah.
So, how did these shorts come about, and what inspired the process that led to these?
Sure. Uh, it really goes way back. Most people have probably heard, if you're into writing or anything, of 10-minute play festivals. There's hundreds of them all over the world, really. And I got into doing 10-minute play festivals years ago, and they're just very doable, both as a writer and as an audience, because, with our short attention span. And so I read some books on, that had 10-minute play festival, up to 10-minute plays in them, and they really caught my attention, and and they were very interesting. I thought, well, you can really tell a good story in 10 minutes or less. And so I started writing those as well, and really enjoyed doing that. And so in 2019, I had a whole heap of 10-minute plays. And in 2019, I went into the London Fringe Festival, and I took 6 that all had the same theme of being about reunions, and they're completely different. And so we went into the festival with a show called Reunited Shorts, and which was 6 plays about reunions, and put it on and received really good feedback on it, and got a great write up in the paper. And since it's been published by Dramatic Publishing, so I thought this has been sort of successful. So in the same process, I thought I'll write more around a similar theme, and see if we can get into the next Fringe Festival. And so I started writing plays, and I started seeing a similar theme of sort of about the mystery of life and beyond, into the afterlife, or however you want to do that, in so many different ways. And so um, so I'd written 7 of those to create a full show, and like I said, um, the Fringe was canceled here in London, and so I combined 4 to make a show out of that. Um, Several of them have the theme, sort of the concept of physics and flying and aviation and aeronautics, all that kind of thing. I have a background in aviation, and so that's always influenced several of my plays. So if you see some of the 10-minute ones, that shows up several times. In the Fringe Festival with the reunions, I actually wrote about a pilot that was in World War II, and John McGee, and he's a Canadian, went to the States, and no, sorry, he was in the U.S. and he came to Canada during the war because the U.S. wasn't in the war yet, and he wanted to go and fight. And he had written a well-known poem called High Flight, I think it was called. And so I wrote a sort of a fictional story about a non-fictional person. He ends up in the afterlife. He meets Anne Frank, and that was sort of the surprise at the end kind of thing. So those kinds of things really intrigue me. One of the plays that's in this year's is about relativity and that science, physics. I love physics as well, and so it's about space and all those weird elements. So that really intrigues me, and I enjoy it. And so it's sort of where's that some of the plays sort of head in the direction of. So
That sounds really interesting.
yeah.
So, having a background in aviation and bringing these elements into your plays, uh, did you get, because I know you had shared, like when did you first write the book that led to these 2019 plays, and how did that whole process start? And
Boy.
yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. But that's actually those six plays were ones that were done over the several years. They were in festivals all over. The first one, actually, the one that I told you, was it that one? No, there's another one. Sorry. There's one called Delilah, and it's about two friends, and one has chosen not to continue with um, uh, radiation and all that for she's got cancer, and her friend has always had control and now she doesn't have control. So that's sort of a small thing, but it was first done in New York City at a festival. It was selected out of 400 entries, and I just was fortunate to have it selected, and so it was done there, and then it was done in several different other places. So each of them were all in festivals all over the place individually, and and they've been done over a long period of time, 4 or 5 years kind of thing. And so I just saw a common thread in them. So they weren't all written with the theme reunions. They were I just found ones that out of all the ones I had that had a reunion kind of theme. And the reunion kind of concept, when you say that, you usually think of high school or something like that, but they're not all necessarily. They're kind of eclectic and unique. Like, for instance, that one where the two girls come together. She's been in the hospital and hasn't come to see her friend for a long time, and she finally comes, hopefully, to try to convince her to continue taking do radiation and try to keep her life extended. So there's all those. There was a bunch of different plays that were pulled together from a long period of time. And so when I did Faded Shorts, which was the 7, which is now 4. They were actually written back to back kind of thing. So it's a little bit different in that way, and a little more time crunch where I was writing one and writing another over the next year and a half or 2 years kind of thing. So yeah,
That's awesome.
so those other ones all came from over a different period of time and weren't really connected, except they became connected. So
That's really exciting.
yeah.
So what first drew you to writing? And because I know, like in the arts, there's so many different avenues in that. And do you primarily write, or do you also act in some of them? What is your sphere as an artist?
Yeah, my interest really was in writing at the beginning, and it primarily came out years ago. I worked with youth, and I've always loved theater. I'm not much of a sports kind of guy. I've done some stuff, but I'm a typical. I love the theater, I love arts, but not great with sports. So I focused on that, and so I wanted to find plays for youth, and at the time I couldn't find what I was looking for. So I thought, well, I'm going to write my own, and sure enough, I did, and from there on started writing. And as time went on, you realize it's really hard to get your play that you've written on the stage. So I then became a director, and so it was kind of learn as you go. So you learn how to do that, and on a couple of occasions, somebody else has pulled me into a play to do acting. I'm not driven by acting. I can do it okay, and if I did it more often, I'd probably become even better. But I have done it, but it's not totally my bag. I'd rather find someone else. I'd rather produce, direct. I'd love to have someone direct for me, but I'd rather produce a show that is my show. I'm more about the script that I've written, and seeing it come alive and people say those words and hear an audience laugh or be moved or whatever. That's, to me, that's I don't have to be in front of the audience.
Mhm.
I'm thrilled when I hear them respond to something that I've written. So that's the thrill for me. So
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah. when you talk about like hearing audiences laugh and that, how are you finding this shift to digital? Having been in Fringe festivals in London in the past and actually being able to hear audience laugh and be a part of that, how are you navigating that shift to the digital environment when we don't have as much feedback directly from audiences?
Well, I cry myself to sleep at night because it's awful. To me, when you write a play, I go to every performance I can, and that's free feedback when you go and someone when you hear the audience or watch the audience respond, and they don't know you're there. You're just in there. I'm usually actually in the sound booth running my own sound. That's another thing I attach to me myself. But I'm there, and I I do my rewrites out of the audience response and also the process of the actors acting, rehearsing and saying this doesn't work, or can we change this? So that's a rewrite. You hear the audience response, that's a rewrite, and that it's like gold. So during this whole COVID thing, that's the hard thing. One of the things that I did when COVID started, of course, people started doing Zoom and they started doing readings and stuff like that. And I had kept putting off my faded shorts. Hopefully, everybody thought, well, it's going to stop. We're going to get a chance to get back, and it never did. So everybody was doing. A lot of people were doing the Zoom kind of thing in the reading. I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to have, all my plays were two-person plays. I wanted to put it on a stage, so I went and cleaned out my garage and created garage theater. I got some grants to do that, and so we have a portable stage for our company, and I have lighting, I have backdrops, and so the little single car garage became a black box theater with no audience, and so I got a camera as well, and we started videotaping, and we did, and that's where these four came from. That for Faded Shorts. So we've between November and April or May, I filmed 10 different short plays using four different actors, and they're all plays kind of thing. So that, unfortunately, again, the only feedback I could get from that was people that streamed it on demand might give some feedback to their friends or to the actors or to whoever. And so it wasn't live, but that's, it was better than nothing, I guess. So it put us back in the theater and on the stage. It gave these actors who are, some of them are actually doing it as a living, kept them active as actors. And we also got funding to help pay them. So they're still getting, some pocket change kind of thing, or some funding anyway. So it wasn't a total stoppage for them or for me. And the nice thing for me too is I putting these on and the actors actually memorizing them and acting them out, and us going over and over rehearsal and putting it on. I got to see. I got to rewrite from that at least. So even though I didn't have an audience, I had that process of putting it on and hearing their feedback and them giving input of how it worked and whether it didn't, and whether it was too long or whether it was, it didn't make sense or anything like that. So that was a huge bonus. Again, like you asked a long time ago, you asked, about the response, and that's the only downside, but we're fortunate that we could use this sort of venue, this idea to continue on. So it's been a bonus in that way. And now I have a recording of 10 plays that I could use, for whatever. I mean, there's, things like the Fringe and stuff like that. So
It's exciting.
yeah.
I'm curious, as you work with different actors, does that shift the rewrites based on who the actors are? Because it is like that co-creation. So I'm wondering if you've ever had a situation where with one actor, like a rewrite might take a different direction if it's with a different actor, you know what I mean? Like every actor kind of brings who they are to the table too. So I'm curious as to how that fits into your process.
It's sort of I've never even thought of that really. It's an interesting concept because most of the time when I put it on, it's only been the one time, so I haven't had the chance to. There's been a couple where it's been different, but it does definitely influence. Actually, there is one that was in the reunion set that I had done a couple of times, and it was very different. And actually, you know, it 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 actually more confirmed to me that though it worked. I didn't make any necessarily make any changes. The first time we did it, I was okay with it, and I thought maybe that's not so great. And then when we did it at the Fringe, we had this whole collection of 6, and it's actually the one that stood out the most to the free press writer and several audience members. I go, oh, well, it's actually actually better than I thought it was. So it was a, sort of a confirmation where and that's the same thing, with when you put something on in front of an audience. Everybody that produces or directs or whatever knows this, that one audience is going to respond completely different than another. So,
Mm-hmm.
the second night, the third night, whatever, you go, they didn't respond like they did last night, or something like that. So it's a combination of the actors, how they did that night, and how the audience was. If you could have somebody in the audience that just sets off everybody else, and so you try to combine all of those. But that's an interesting question, and I haven't really had a lot of opportunity to have different actors, or at least watch them, because they've been done elsewhere. But to see that, yeah, helps sort of either confirm, if you do it twice and it didn't work both times, then it's something to do with the
Yeah.
writing. It's not the acting, it's me.
Mhm.
So that's when it sends you back to doing some rewriting. So that's a good point, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, is there anything that you're hoping in particular that audience members get from having seen this show in this particular format with the 4 of them combined? And what are you hoping that festival goers take away from the experience with them?
I for my productions, I have a mission, and it's sort of 3 words. It's to influence, inform, and inspire.
Mm.
I want some of my plays, most of them have some kind of something to learn from it. Like, for instance, the relativity me, it's the science kind of element, and maybe there's something in there that you've never known about, and hopefully it'll, uh, you'll learn from something from it, and you'll go, oh, I got to find out more about that. I've done that when I've seen shows. I go, I never do that. I'm going to go look that up, or I'm going to find out more. So hopefully it sort of gets people that, informs them of something that's interesting, and they go away, or inspire them to live differently, or react differently, or influence them to change themselves.
Mhm.
So in the 4, they're all unique, and sort of they're completely different. And one's about, well, they're all sort of about life, and so hopefully they definitely influence me, but they influence audience members to think about life itself, and or their friends, or the time we have, uh, or whatever it might be, that maybe make an adjustment, or just even start a conversation on the way home, or after you watch it. Starts a conversation between whoever you watched it with, or a conversation with yourself if you watch it on your own. So that's the goal of all my stuff. And I even actually use the 3 eyes through the process as well. I'm hoping that the actors, and probably more often than not, they sort of are influenced, informed, and inspired by themselves. A lot of times I've written about something that I didn't know about, and so I've done the research, and then they learn something from it as well. And so then they get the opportunity to communicate that to an audience, which is so cool, so fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say in your process you're kind of informing yourself, influencing yourself, and what was the third one? Sorry. Like the
Influence,
in,
inform, and inspire.
inspire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that it kind of goes both ways as you're doing that process?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And when I've written out that, if I write in a grant and I say, that's what my mission is, it is the cast and crew and the audience, and definitely myself. I definitely inform. I'm definitely learning, not just the historical part of it, but learning from the experience that, if it's a real person, or if it's not, it's sort of, you're writing a play, and sometimes it takes off on its own, and you got to catch up, so it's sort of teaching me as it's taking off on its own, kind of thing. So yeah,
That's
yeah, it's
exciting.
yeah, that's the cool thing of writing, eh? It's like,
Mhm.
the research and the learning process and all that. So
For sure.
yeah.
I'm just noticing the time, so we are
Okay.
running out of time. So is there anything that you wanted to touch on that we didn't get a chance to talk about yet, or that you want audience members to know about your festival submission?
Really, other than I hope you, if you do take time to watch it, that you are influenced, inspired, and informed out of it. And I would say for anybody that watches a show, um, and is moved or whatever by the show, contact the person who wrote it or put it on. Don't feel afraid or fearful of contacting them. They want to hear. I mean, they really want to hear. And I'd say that for myself. If someone had watched something of mine and thought, "Wow, that I really connected with that," I'd love to hear that, because that tells me it worked. It also encourages me to keep on writing,
Mhm.
and so yeah, always make a point if you go to see a theater or or whatever, is connect with someone. I know when I went to a Toronto Fringe, that I waited after, because there was a show that really was amazing, and I just waited for the writer to come out. They were the actor and writers, and I just told them that, and they were thrilled to hear that. So I would be thrilled as well. So yes, I encourage your viewers to do that. So
Yeah, and for viewers as well, if you download our festival pamphlet, it has links to everyone's socials and ways that you
oh,
can
awesome,
contact them for sure.
that's great, excellent, super,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Len, and for
Oh,
coming on.
thank
And
you.
thank you to our audience for watching. Miigwech, merci, gracias. And come out to the festival. It runs from August 19th to the 22nd with a sneak preview on the 18th. So buy tickets, come out, support artists, and we'll see you all there. Have a great day.
All
Thanks
right,
for
thanks,
watching.
Caitlin.
Bye. Thank you for watching our podcast. Merci, miigwech, gracias. If you like what we're doing, you can support Fringe North and the artists involved in this year's festival financially so that we can continue this work. Visit www.fringenorth.ca to find out more.